Welcome to Women in Electronics, the only show that empowers, develops, advocates, and celebrates the accomplishments and advancement of women in the electronics industry. With your host, Jackie Maddox.
Okay, well, here we are again today with another episode of Women in Electronics podcast series. Super excited to be here today with Scott Theune. So glad I said that correctly. Scott, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jackie.
I had to look down on my paper. I'm like, oh, am I going to say that right? Anyway, really excited to be here with you today. So Scott, with that, what I will do is I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself, your title, and what do you do at Plexus?
Sure. So my name is Scott Theune. I am the president of the Americas region for Plexus. We have three regions that we operate in, Europe, APAC, and the Americas. So I have the responsibility for the Americas region.
All right. Big responsibility, Scott. So leading up to that, I'm sure was quite a journey. So why don't we circle back around with that? So I typically like to ask people how they got their start in the industry because I'm finding it's so different, right? Everybody's story is so different how you ended up here. So anyway, so for this position you're in now, pretty big position. How did you get your start? How did you land here?
It's a great question, Jackie. So I was working in a different company that was going through some downsizing. So actually, surprisingly, I reached out to my financial advisor, looking for companies that were well positioned for growth over the next 5 to 10 years. I wanted to be proactive in my career. As it turned out, the timing was perfect. The industry that we know was really transitioning from contract manufacturing, where our companies were being used really for surge capacity, to one that's now become much higher level partnership, which is now branded EMS, or electronic manufacturing services. So there's a real shift in how we were valued by customers. I started out, early in my career. I have an engineering background. We were growing so fast, I actually advanced to be a general manager of one of our larger facilities at age 34. And then as Plexus ventured outside the U.S., I got the opportunity to lead manufacturing and technology strategies on a global basis, a fair amount of global travel. From there, I ended up moving into supply chain and progressed up to be the leader of our supply chain organization, ultimately became part of our executive leadership team. And then about 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to kind of come full circle back into operations as president of the Americas region. I now have responsibility for 5 sites in the U.S., 2 sites in Mexico, just over $1 billion in revenue.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And it's really interesting timing when you said that you had that experience in supply chain. So going into COVID and everything that was to come with that, what amazing timing that, you had that under your belt, because those skills and that knowledge probably really came in handy. You also mentioned that global experience. It's really interesting because when we talk to a lot of women in our industry in particular, we really have found that a lot of times that global experience helps your career a lot. And it doesn't seem that as many women have had that experience because of family and all kinds of different issues. But can you talk to that? Because I'm so curious. What is your take on having global experience with career advancement?
Great point. It's, I think it's extremely valuable, especially as you look at change management. How people adopt, different strategies, in different functions, different throughout the world. Organizational structures can be different also and play a different role in how you, create the change. But when I look at, global experience, if you're leading teams, is also different. You need to provide, I think, have the tools to provide the right leaderships and skills and style, to retain people in a very competitive market. And what I always say is, how do you get discretionary effort from people that, don't work in the same building as you? So unless you really understand the different dynamics of different cultures throughout the world and what motivates them, it's very difficult to be a people leader. without that experience.
Excellent point. I like what you said too about change management. Super critical. It's really interesting looking at leadership moving into the future and how critical that is. We're finding that we need a lot of skills in that area is change management. So with that, tell us specifically about Plexus and your organization. Tell us about the products. Tell us about your strengths in the market. I mean, we've all heard Plexus. I was a rep in the industry. I got my first job in the industry counting parts as a rep, working for a rep, and it was a really great ride. But we always heard of Plexus. Plexus is a big name in the contract manufacturing world. So tell us about Plexus. How did you get that name? What's your strengths, and how do you position yourself in the market?
Sure. Our vision, which really hasn't changed, is to help create the products that build a better world. We want to be the global leader in highly complex products, with demanding regulatory environments. And we've been able to stay, the 40 years that Plexus has been in business, we've been able to stay true to that vision and make sure we're adding value to our customers over time. I think another thing that makes us a little bit unique is that we provide full value stream services, including engineering, product development, supply chain, manufacturing, aftermarket services for about 150 strategic customers within the healthcare, life sciences, industrial, and aerospace and defense industry. So our portfolio is about 40% healthcare, 40% industrial, and 20% aerospace and defense. So that's kind of what we set out to do. And what I enjoy about it is that our mission and vision hasn't really changed in the time that I've been with Plexus.
So let me ask you a question. So that's pretty interesting. I didn't know 40% of your business was medical. How did that impact things during COVID? Were you working with many, end users that were manufacturing kits, or how did that look during COVID?
Yeah, it was really interesting dynamics because obviously some of the products became much more in need in the COVID pandemic. And, one great example I would give you is that within the healthcare space, when the pandemic occurred, an OEM came to us looking for help on producing COVID testing machines, because their current provider couldn't scale to what was needed and really ramp effectively. And, within 3 months, Plexus was able to ramp to over 2,000 units a week testing machines for COVID that really made possible millions of individual COVID tests. I personally, was involved in the journey. I came in on weekends to help set up the line, make sure the stations that we were building at were safe from spreading COVID as we wanted to protect our employees, which was mission critical. But, we had to protect our employees to make sure we could build products that could provide the testing for the industry. So it's really a great team effort, really confirmed the culture, and reason I love being part of the Plexus team.
Well, that's really interesting. It's good to know that there was companies like you that were working really hard behind the scenes. So, and we do have other contract manufacturers, right, in our globe. Yeah. So what would you say is your specific strength over your competition? How is it that you've been able to be a leading contract manufacturer all these years? What is that?
Sure. It's a few things. I would start out with just saying that one of the pillars of our strategy, or a few of them, is really focus and discipline. We're intentional on the customers that we select, where we know we can add value, hit on staying true to our mission vision. We're also not afraid to, we want to grow, but we're not afraid to say no if the opportunity really doesn't align with bringing products to market that's going to make a better world. So we don't get in a lot of consumer products. The things that we're going to be in are more regulatory. And the second part of that, it really focuses on the need to have superior execution, focus on zero defects, perfect delivery, how we unite our values and leadership competencies, through our teammates and to our customers. And ultimately that's led to a disciplined financial model that's, had industry leading financial performance, as well as scores from our customers. We have the highest, what we can find is the highest scores as far as net promoters from our customer base.
Okay, well, that's really good to know, Scott. I'm sure you've been a big part of that. bringing your personal touch to things. So moving forward here, Plexus has been pretty successful. You've had your run there, bringing your prior experience and talents to the table. What's moving forward? What is it that you see for Plexus? What are your goals looking forward?
Yeah, a couple fronts. First of all, I would look financially. We're really excited. As we're delighting our customers, we're able to guide our first $1 billion quarter of revenue coming into our end of our fiscal year in fiscal 22. Our goals are to reach $5 billion in revenue. Continue to have a strong operating profit and ROCE as we target going out to 2025 to be a $5 billion company. So the track would be to continue to grow. And, I didn't mention this earlier, Jackie, but our growth has all been organic. We are not somebody that goes out and acquires company to grow. And I think it's a really key point because if you grow organically, it gives you a much better opportunity to, have common systems for our customers, not confuse our employees on what our mission and vision are, be able to set the culture that we want through our organization. So we're not fighting different cultures as we grow. We've got a very good brand, and I think our employees really align to the values that we have within our organization.
Okay, so let me circle back around on that real quick. So you said organic growth. Just explain, what is it that you mean by organic growth? Is that word of mouth, expansion within existing customers? So what is it that you're referring to as organic growth?
Sure. So we actually have a term internally that we call an execution dividend. So we feel if we can perform for our customers, shipping them products on time at a competitive price with zero defects, that we will grow our business and take share from our competition, open up different markets to them. So that's one avenue. The other avenue is going wider. So if we're just doing manufacturing today with an OEM, if they see where we can add more value on the engineering service side, if we can do aftermarket services, repair, rework for them, different parts of our supply chain, solutions for them. So when we talk about organic growth, is how do we take this core set of customers and go deeper with them rather than trying to have, 100 more customers to grow. We want to grow with the customers that we think really align to our mission and vision statement and where we can drive value into the organization.
Okay, so that's really great. And we're going to come up on a part 2 here, but I want to ask you one more thing before we sign off for part 1. So because there are other competitors in the market that I'm sure are friendly competitors in some capacities because everybody does something different and has their own niche, I'm just so curious, when COVID hit and tragedy kind of strikes or crisis strikes in the industry, is there some collaborative effort? Do people talk behind the scenes and say, hey, we can all help in these ways? Or does everybody just get in their lane and just do what they do best? I'm just so curious about that.
We probably collaborated more with our customers, Jackie, to be honest, than our competitors. We wanted to make sure that we were probably first and foremost aligned on employee safety and our customers. So we did a lot of communication on, plants that were operating, if they were maybe operating at different efficiencies or different data on, what the, maybe amount of absenteeism was so that we could make commitments that we could hold to. So I think we shared probably more best practices with our customers on, screening, masking, workstation design, all the things that would go into that, family members, leave absences, like that. That's probably maybe on the competitive side, we did some things, but they're probably more on a local level than a competitor level. So the different cities that we would perform in, we want to make sure we were being in alignment with what the local companies were doing so that we were first and foremost protecting the safety of our employees, but then also figuring out how we could best optimize the output for our customers. And we did make some decisions, similar to the example I gave earlier, where we might have put resources to a product that we knew was helping the pandemic above something else that maybe wasn't as mission critical and still work with that customer to, that we're meeting their needs. But there was a lot of collaboration, throughout our EH&S as well as our human resources to make sure, like I said, that we are protecting our employees as well as satisfying our customers during the pandemic.
Okay, well, that was a great answer. I appreciate that very much. What I want to do is wrap up part one, but I'm not done with you yet, Scott. Okay. So I want to talk to you more about your personal why, kind of more the heart behind the leader, and just talk to you a little bit further. So we will catch you at part two. Thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you, Jackie.
You've been listening to another episode of Women in Electronics, right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net.